Hello, today we are going to talk about CMakeLint, which is a static analyzer for CMake files. So files which are named CMakeLists.txt and files with the extension CMake. So we search on Google for CMakeLint. The GitHub page is CMake-lint/CMake-lint. You can install it using pip, the Python package manager, and then you call it with CMakeLint and the name or a list of CMake files. Okay, so first of all, let's install this thing. We're not going to use pip install to install for my local user or system-wide. Instead, we're going to use virtual env. So there's two things. One is called virtual env, and the other one is built into Python since version 3.3, the module venv. So let's try to use virtual env. Okay, so I'm on Kubuntu 23.04. This is a Linux operating system. And in here, I have Python 3, which is provided by my Linux operating system. And there's a virtual env Python package from my Linux operating system, which corresponds to the version of Python 3. So both Python 3 and Python 3 virtual env are provided by my operating system. Okay, so in my case, that would be sudo install, and the name is Python 3 virtual env. apt. Okay, already installed. Okay, so let's set up virtual env in the today's directory. So let's see if we have virtual env. Yes, we do. We have it in path. Okay, there's usage, help. So it says virtual env and then dest, so a directory. So let's make that virtual env and then the pi directory. Okay, so it created a directory named pi, subdirectory in the current directory. It says created virtual environment in this full path directory. Okay, and now we need to source the environment. So let's create a new tab in console. Let's change to this directory. Okay. Source environment name, that's pi. bin and activate. Okay, let's look at the directory. So there's a bin directory that contains Python, Python 3, and Python 3.11, which are all symlinks. Let's look at these. So they Python points to /usr/bin/python3, which is the version of Python that's installed from Ubuntu deb packages. And then Python 3 is a symlink to the Python from this directory, and Python 3.11 the same. Okay, let's see what PIP does. So this is the same script. These are not symlinks, but in fact have the same bodies, the same content. Okay, and then there's wheel, which does a similar thing to PIP, just uses a different Python module. Okay, and then activate, there's activate for C shell, fish, GNU shell, PowerShell, and this is probably for Unix POSIX standard shell, so Bourne shell. Or maybe it only does bash. Okay, so this is where the virtual env is configured. We have this prepended to our prompt, to the bash prompt. So pi, which is the name of the directory of the virtual env. Okay, and now we can actually start installing the with PIP CMakeLint. Okay, and then in the lib directory, there's a directory for side packages. So for the packages here, the PIP will install packages. Okay, so how do we install virtual env? We did it, we've installed it. Now, how do we install CMakeLint? Pip install CMakeLang. What is that? This is another thing. PIP install CMakeLint this thing. Okay. So CMakeLint was installed in the directory bin inside of the pi virtual env. So this thing. Okay. So we now have a CMakeLint executable. It's in our path environment variable. So the bin directory inside of the virtual environment PI was prepended at the start of the path environment variable. And now we can start using it. So I've built using kdsrc-build, which is the KD build framework. KD frameworks version 6, different KD Git repositories. And now we can take a look at the CMake files inside of these Git repositories. So let's look for example, at K color scheme. So there's a top level CMakeLists.txt. Ctrl-Alt-C. Ctrl-Shift-D. And it says that lines should be wrapped manually by pressing the Enter key. So lines should not be longer than 80 characters. Then it says extra spaces between if and the parentheses. So let's actually look at this. Okay, so the standard is to not have spaces after if. So let's remove the spaces. There's one here. There's one here. And then what's this? Says mismatching space inside round parentheses after command. So that would be this one. Okay. And then at line 93, weird indentation, use 2 spaces instead of tabs. Instead of 4 spaces. Let's look. So in other blocks we have 2 spaces, whereas here we have 3 spaces. So let's delete one. Let's save the output. So now that we have fixed some issues, I save the file and I run CMakeLint again. And the only violations remaining are lines that are longer than 80 characters, which I will ignore for a while. Okay, so the next step would be to do a git commit and a GitLab merge request. So let's actually do that. So git fetch origin, git GUI. Let's make sure that we're the local git master branch points to the same git commit as the remote origin master branch, which they do. I just did a git fetch. So let's do a commit. Okay. CMakeLint spaces. Okay, and in the commit message body, we should have all of the errors that we fixed. Okay. So what did we fix? None of these with line length. We did this one. Let's replace this thing with nothingness. Okay, this is it. Okay, so where inside of the commit message title, CMakeLists.txt, the file that we have edited, what did we do? We fixed spaces because of CMakeLint, and this is boilerplate code, fix the static analysis tool, issues, and then between double quotes the actual errors or warnings that were written to the terminal by the static analysis tool. Okay, commit. We need to create a new branch here in order to create a GitLab merge request from here. And then I'll need to push this thing to my fork. And then create a merge request. Okay. Let's see how we can run CMakeLint on more than one file at a time. And let's see what types of warnings and errors does CMakeLint find in the CMake files of the KDE frameworks version 6. Okay, so this is the recipe recipe. So kde.org, hamburger menu, get involved, development, and then in here we have easy tasks. And in here we have a chapter about CMakeLint. So we've just run kdsrc-build keyconfig to build the KDE Git repository keyconfig. And now we'll run a command line that runs CMakeLint over all of the CMakeLists.txt files, and then another one over all of the files with extension CMake in that Git repository. So let's actually do this. How do we do it? cd /kde6 src. Let's try with kcolor scheme. Okay. So we have an a.txt and a b.txt. b.txt is probably empty because there are no files with extension CMake, whereas there are probably 3 files with extension files named CMakeLists.txt. And one is in the top level directory and the other one is in the src directory. So let's actually look at this. So this is the CMakeList.txt file in the top level directory that only has errors of type lines should be less than 80 characters long. And then inside the src directory, there's another top level there's another CMakeList.txt file, which has these CMakeLint issues. So these two seem interesting. There's another one in auto tests. I'm not sure why it did not find this one. CMakeLists.txt. Okay. And then files with the extension CMake. There's none. Okay, let's run this thing over many .cmake files. Where do they live? In here. Reload. Okay, so there's 2,600 lines. Most are CMakeLint errors and other lines are of type total errors. Okay, so if we exclude all of the lines should be less than or equal to 80 characters long. How do we do that? Okay, we're down to about half. About half of the CMakeLint issues were that type, line to long. So we know how width indentation looks like. We know how extra spaces between if and its pair of parentheses looks like. Uppercase and lowercase commands. How does this thing look like? Do not mix uppercase and lowercase commands. On line 15. It's str equal and version greater or I don't see where the problem is. I don't. Extra spaces between or and its parentheses on the same line. So in here and here. On line 16, the same thing. Okay, with indentation, mismatching space inside round parentheses, we saw this thing. So I only see about, I don't know, 10 types of CMakeLint errors. So with the indentation, use two spaces, mismatching space inside parentheses, extra spaces for various CMake language keywords or if, etc. Do not mix upper and lower case commands. Line ends in white space. What's this? Yeah, so this is about trailing white space. If possible, your lines should not have trailing white space in most programming languages. And that's it. In my opinion, the CMake files should be CMakeLint clean. So running CMakeLint on CMake files should not generate any warning error issue. It's a bit of an effort to actually get all of the CMake files clean because the KDE community has more than 400 KDE Git repositories and most of them use CMake as the build configuration technology. This is it. Thank you.